in the counties where he operates. To the extent that it's public information, and most of it is, we can check. But so can you. In government, the two areas where access to information is limited typically revolves around criminal activities and also the stuff that's covered by data practices. Data practices of the two is the most complicated. And there's a variety of reasons why you might not be able to, but typically the environmental stuff you have access to. Can residents and other interested parties pay for an objective environmental assessment worksheet? And these questions I'm reading, there's longer versions of this, but I'm just trying to shorten them up so I don't dominate the dialogue here. I look at that, and there's no reason why you can't. In fact, I think that's a pretty cool idea because typically, because of the cost, there's usually only one done. But I know I'm asked to occasionally do appraisals, estates especially, where there's more than one appraiser that's doing this. And it's kind of fun to see how different the two documents are. And sometimes you have appraisals that completely different line of reasoning, but relatively close in opinion, the final result. And sometimes you have relatively close in terms of an analysis structure, completely different opinions. So that'd be pretty interesting if that would happen in any case. Let's see. Does absentee ownership factor into anything here? No. What the government bodies are interested in is the factual data. Who owns it isn't a big deal. Now, for some things, certain types of approvals that the Planning Commission reviews, the operator that's making the application has a great deal of influence over whether or not the application would get approved. Example, the Kramers in Cold Spring. Chad Kramer, he and his dad have an excavating outfit. I think his dad's dead now. And Tom Kramer is the guy that has the company that has the landfill. And they have the refuse disposal and so forth. These people are terrific to work with. They follow, when they come in for an application, we know they're going to follow the rules to the letter. And just the fact that it's them, yes, it has influence of the Planning Commission for all the right reasons. Now, there's always conspiracy theorists among us who think that these approvals follow cash. If that's going on in Stearns County, it's new to me, and I've been around a while. But the punchline is no, that if the operator has a wonderful operating record, that gets given consideration. Can the aquifer sustain higher usage of water needed for the operation? Water usage, even in the industrial situations, is evolving as well. Back in the day, I said there's enough gray hair in here, you'll remember this. Back in the day, the cheese plant in Watkins caused great harm to the Clearwater chain because they were dumping their sewage into the stream, which ran into the lake chain. And ultimately, that cheese plant, because it was dated, shut down. They couldn't make the upgrades, afford to make the upgrades to continue operation. Cheese processing hasn't changed. It's still a lot of water usage, but what's happening now with cheese, the new plant in Rockville will be served by the Cold Spring water treatment plant. Well, that's very near capacity, and in order for them to get approval to build, they had to show that they had their own on-site water treatment. So that cheese plant has a significant recycling component and self-cleaning, on-site self-cleaning operation than the cheese plants in the past. So there are ways to deal with this. To the extent that they're economic or possible in an ag production facility, I don't know. I haven't seen anything that's crossed my desk of an analytical nature. But then, 5 years ago, I never saw proposals that included robotic milking. Now they're coming like crazy, and there's beyond the efficiency and the labor component savings for them. There's the health component, the operator. So it's not, you can't measure everything in dollars and cents, I guess is the message here. Limitations on Stearns County use of CAFOs, and CAFOs, as I indicated before, are, and somebody's pretty sophisticated with these questions, confined animal feeding operations. We do have regulations that go along with the confined animal feeding operations, and in the application, that's one of the boxes you check, but there's more to it than checking the box. You got to show, possibly with a separate document, you have to show compliance. And if there's a leak or a spill or something happens, what actions does the county take? We had just this thing happen just outside Rockville on the Hanson farm. Hanson's had two, let me get this right. They've got two 500,000 gallon manure storage tanks. And you see those big blue, squatty looking tanks out there as opposed to the tall blue silo things? Well, the manure storage tanks are the squatty blue tanks. And those are emptied spring and fall. And it's spring and fall because of the crop cover. There's no crop cover in spring, there's none in fall. And what's in there is liquefied, and then they could pump it. Well, the question here, what happens if one of those malfunctions, a valve sticks, which is what happened in Rockville, and went into the adjacent creek? The Hansons immediately notified the county, and the local fire department, fortunately, had been trained as a response team to just that function, and that there was a temporary solution in 48 hours and a permanent solution in 2 weeks. So I doubt that every event that could possibly take place in Stearns County could be that well covered, but we do have experience with doing it. Can I quit for a while? All right, thank you.
Before we open the floor to questions, I'd like to give these fellows down here the opportunity. You guys have some questions for the commissioner?
Is he gonna answer them, or does he want to be done?
Oh, are you able to answer questions from the fellows at the end of the table, or?
If I can't answer them, I'll refer you to staff.
Okay.
Because the real technical stuff, hey, I'm an appraiser, not an environmental engineer.
I don't know. You know the process better than we do. The first question is, Stearns County has a water management plan. Mm-hmm. When these permits are filled or applied for, who compares the permit to the water management plan?
Environmental services staff would take that into account. In fact, by the way, you bring up a good point. Well, you reminded me of a good point. But the value of public input, multiple minds do better at thinking of stuff that comes up than, just us. We know better, go away. No, we don't operate that way. And part of your input, as long as that input is, hell no, we don't want it. If you have valid environmental concerns, what we do is essentially, if it's something we haven't encountered before, that's something that we add to our analysis. Compliance with the water. Oh, another advantage that you have in this area with the Larson proposal, it's in the Clearwater Watershed District, and you would have access, not completely, but you'd have some access to an environmental engineer. The Wank Environmental engineering firm has been the watershed's engineering firm for years and years. And to the extent that you wanted to gather most of the information for an environmental impact statement, they could do that for you with the approval of the watershed board. Now, the issue I would see that may come up if you would propose something like that is in Clearwater watershed, it's 3 counties, it's Stearns, Meeker, and Wright. And each county has representation on the board. So getting board approval to do something like that isn't necessarily a slam dunk, but they do have the capability to do that. To the extent that there are specific impacts to the plan, we take a look at it. And by the way, one of the criticisms or one of the things that I got in phone calls is the question of, well, this is going to have an impact on the water table. Actually, where this place is proposed, the issue is less about water table and a whole lot more about coarse soils. So your permeability on coarse soils is faster than it is on loamy soils, for example. Where the landwear farm is that I was telling you about is more loamy. The stuff around here is coarser, more granular. People used to say, well, you know, I got real sandy soils, so my septic tank will drain away immediately. Well, that's true, but it doesn't stop anything. You know, you want loamy soils, because loamy soils will help self-clean a septic system. So to the extent that the water plan is an issue, it's considered, but not every element of a water plan relates to an ag situation.
Can I add to that, in that situation?
But
The building site where he wanted to put this, the elevation was 1160. Our lake is 1131. It's 29 feet. Deepest part of that manure pit where the sump is was 16 feet. That puts it 13 feet to the water table. So if that area was to leak in the coarse soils, it'd be a matter of hours to days to get into the drinking water. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
it does to that extent. Do you have central sewer and water around the lakes area here? Grand Lake does. My lake does.
Actually, the development by Fairhaven, the Whipper Edition.
Yep. Long run. I know on the Clearwater watershed, for those of you for local history, Roland Froyen was a friend of mine. But Roland Froyen also drove me nuts. And he was on the watershed board, and his big push over the years is central sewer and water. Long run, to the extent you have any influence over your neighbors, that's worth promoting, and yes, it'll cost you. It cost us on Grand Lake, and our market values have increased to the point now with current sales activity. We've recovered all that. I wish you would. I mean, to do that out here is a much bigger project than we did around Grand Lake. But when you hear that argument come up, don't just complain about it in terms of cost. I have only been on Grand Lake, I don't live there, but we've only had our place less than a decade. But talking to the old timer, lake clarity has gone from 3 feet to 13 feet.
Which, you made the statement that farms have come a long ways in keeping the safety of food and the production going up. Isn't it true in the last 10 years that these farms, instead of being spread out over more, they're more concentrated now? And based off your management plan and the Minnesota Department of Health, within 10 years they took a snapshot of the soils in Stearns County. And in the 10 years, in 2008, Stearns County had the soil where we're at as a high risk for contamination. And in 2013, when the Minnesota Department of Health did their map, they upgraded that to a very high sensitivity to contamination or pollution. And also in that 10 years, in Main Prairie Township, Pearl Lake has been added to the impaired waters list.
Oh, yeah.
I know, I believe Grand is on that lake. It may be coming off with the plans they've done in place. What's Stearns County doing to ensure, right now we got Beaver, we got Carnelian, Lake Murray, school section, they all drain into Louisa, and the whole chain of lakes is on the impaired water list. What's Stearns County doing to make sure we don't get more lakes on it based on the farming practices that are happening now where it's more concentrated?
There's two sets of farming practices. There's cropping and there's livestock. The livestock is going in both directions, more concentrated and less concentrated. Well, how can that be? The growth of organic farming. Stearns County leads the state in the number of organic farms. It's possible, again, you won't get rich. This is the one farm I toured in Melrose, 120 acres, 35 cows, all organic. To the extent snowfall allowed year-round grazing. And if an operation like that is less concentrated, granted with the herb consolidation, remember when I was doing the presentation, we're talking about the number of cows and net production's going up and how cows being stable. It's more concentrated in that regard. The bottom line is, if it's more concentrated, at least with the new facilities, we can do the on-site manure management a little easier than if it's all spread out. So what you are saying, I won't argue with the data, but I think I can explain it, is that we still have significant influence from dated operations. Like the stuff that, like the stuff we approved on Thursday night, the Hinnon camps in section 25 of Melrose, that with, that operation's going forward under current standards, and it's a cleaner operation than in the past. So remember, the industry is concerned about food safety.
Got another question over on groundwater. The nitrates in our township are on the rise. Mike can attest to that.
Can you speak up, Bob?
So the nitrates in the township are on the rise.
The nitrates in our township are on the rise. I mean, I've been in a Central Sands testing program since 2000. Mine are fine, but Mike's less than a half a mile away.
In 2006, my well testing for 7.3 parts per million in nitrates. Just got it tested about 2 weeks ago. It was 23.8 parts per million. The EDA or somebody says that the acceptable amount in a well is 10 parts per million. Now, when they did his manure application through environmental services, they said that he could put 5,700 gallons of manure on per year per acre. We know our soil is coarse. I guess how do you say that's all right to do that?
It depends on the manure management plan, and it depends upon if there's an on-site treatment component to the proposal. If they can meet it in that respect, if they can handle it, that's what we do. But the idea that we're using the same standards that we did even 4 or 5 years ago, it's not so. We've got extensive experience and still growing with 2 property uses, gravel pits and ag. And I'm not saying that the way we do it now is perfect, but it's better than it was.
So,
Can I ask a question on that topic? So as a homeowner, what, if you have your water tested and that's high, where do you go and what do you do, and is it effective to go to the government agency? I mean, are they helping homeowners?
They get involved to the extent that if it's you're more likely to get help if it's the bigger the area that's impacted, the more likely you are to get help. If it's a small area, that's pretty tough. We have, for example, in some areas, we've shut down remotely located manufactured home settlements, for example. Some of those are really bad. So, and understand if you get to a certain point with health issues, not unlike like that and others, it impacts the saleability of your property. I mean, none of us live forever, and at some point you have to turn that over. There's getting to be a little more sophisticated individual on-site treatment methods. They're not nearly to the point of the development of on-site energy sources, but it's coming. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy to get that done.
Where do you go?
I think the county becomes aware of that because since '92, we have required septic permits and also other units of government have test wells across the county, and they share that data with us, and we can notice trends. So if you come in and you're just one property owner and you say my life is going to hell in a handbasket, this is why. If it's consistent with the data we're getting, you're more likely to be taken seriously, and we're looking for a solution. That said, like I said, the bigger the area impacted, the more likely you are to get some help from somebody.
I guys have one more question down here, but I saw it.
Yeah, it varies a little bit from what we're talking about exactly now, but the environmental services just consider pounds of manure, or do they identify a difference between hog manure and cattle manure in terms of how it's handled?
No. What does make that differentiation is the manure management plan. The manure management plan does measure the nutrient value of different types of manure. For example, the nutrient value of chicken manure is high enough that farmers will pay for it. And the manure management plan shows that. Obviously, we would probably have the ability to test that ourselves, although it's done by other people. And rely on their results. But yeah, it is recognized in the process.
What I was getting at is that I've been told there's a chemical difference. Hog manure changes to nitrate and goes through the soil more like urea. It goes through fast compared to cattle manure.
Depends on the soil.
Well, in these coarse soils
Yeah.
is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor to questions for 5 more minutes.
Hi. What I'm wondering is what benefit to the county is a big ag half-full like is proposed, where you're talking about Jansky's, Landwehr's, they are generational people that have lived here their whole lives. They're part of the community. You have a big corporation come in and set up this big, what benefit does anyone receive from that?
This sounds like I'm avoiding the question, but I'm coming home. Okay. I cite the example of at what point does the Ed and Rose Lenzmeier farm, which were my parents, we did have a dairy farm, become Ed and Rose Lenzmeier and Son, which in the case of my brother and myself, if we took that over. At what point does that become Lenzmeier Inc.? Gee, when did that stop being a family farm? When did that become a corporate operation? Even if it's now a corporate operation, which it would have been, it'd be part of the larger farm. And you're seeing that happen.
There's still a difference, excuse me, there's still a difference between, say, Jansky's with 200 and some dairy cows as 9,000 hogs. I mean, true, my husband and I had a corporation with 3 trucks. You're comparing apples to oranges to a family farm, which is larger maybe than some of the other farms, but they're still family-owned people that are responsibly running their business because they are part of the community. When you get RDO or these big corporations to come in here, they could care less about our quality of living because they don't live here. They're not part of it.
That's true. they still have to meet the compliance requirements.
Minnesota has an anti-corporate farming law that says corporations can't own any part of the farm. Do you guys check into that? Does Stearns County, your staff, they have to go to the Department of Ag supervisor, I believe, and the corporation, because obviously family farms now are, if there's multiple brothers or sisters involved in it, they make a corporation. The Department of Ag has to approve that corporation for farming. In the case of RDO, in this case, he owned the land. We knew that's public knowledge. We knew Caesar Larson was going to run it. He's got 6, 7 corporations himself. RDO, I think, had 30-some corporations. And then we knew, well, the rumor was that Wakefield Pork was going to be supplying the pigs. Who's checking in to see if it's an approved corporation that's going to be part of this farm? That way, we don't have the outside influences coming in and setting up these big concentrated feedlots.
You'll always have the outside influences, if not necessarily because they have locations in Stearns County, but they do influence the market. I mean, they do, they supply product to the market, which influences prices. So in that respect, they will always be and will continue to grow as an influencer of the ag aspect of it. The nature of agriculture in Stearns County is unique. About 10 years ago, I noticed that very seldom did I see in all of the variety of ag organizations that are out there, meaning like the whole Minnesota Milk Producers, the Holstein Association, those types of organizations. It was unusual for a Stearns County farmer to be one of those officers in those organizations. And when I looked at who the officers were, they were always from they tended to be from larger farms because they had hired help that could run the farm when they were off doing these meetings. And still, even to this day with the consolidation, that still tends to be the typical operator in Stearns County. Now, that said, they no longer have 200 acres. They have 500 acres. They have 700 acres, but they're still, farms like that. Next year, breakfast on the farm is the Keekley operation, there by Watkins. So it's still, like the lady said, you got the multi-generational operations that have the 100-year roots in this area. With the continued, one of the things that's ironically, you're talking about enforcing regulations, one of the things that's driving that consolidation is that, I'll get to you, is that as more and more regulations come down the line, more and more of an operator's time is driven by meeting regulations, which the small operator is unable to do. So in some respects, we're our own worst enemy in that regard. You can see that even in small businesses and other types of operations.
Yeah, I got here a little late, maybe this was covered, but we've heard a lot about the water pollution aspect, which is certainly very, very important in this question. But the other thing that comes to mind, I live maybe towards the outer fringes of this impact area that the facility proposed out there would affect. But one of the things that, I don't know, I haven't heard discussed at all or very little is the air impact, the ability to be able to breathe around the facility. And I don't know if you want a lesson on what kind of an impact this would have. You go down to Iowa this time of the year, 4 miles around it. I have a granddaughter that has some medical issues. Basically, if something like this is built in our neighborhood, she is not going to be able to even come to our house when this facility is operating, which will be 24/7. And, one of the things that comes to mind here is taking a property and quality of life with no due process whatsoever. Now, this is an entirely different facility than something like the Janskis or the Brinkmans or any of these other larger family versus corporate operations. The Janskis, the Brinkmans, if you drive down the road and they're maybe getting a little too much manure in the road, you can call Bob up and say, hey Bob, yeah, and it's taken care of. And this larger operation is not. You're simply ignoring it. So basically, if something, I just wanted to make a comment, if something like this is built, my property turned basically worthless to me to live there. And this is documented in Iowa, no compensation. I don't want to move, but I'm forced to move. And we have no way of dealing with this in our current rules and regulations.
We don't have a legal process. We do have a practical process, and it isn't as many. The good news is it doesn't have much to do with government. We have had situations, at least one for sure. There may be more because I don't track this, for my real estate practice. I don't specifically track what you're talking about. But I can think of one situation where a larger operation bought out a fellow that was on 10 acres and a homestead, and they bought him out. Now that was a farming operation. We also have situations where, and this is specific to granite mining, and there's a fair amount of noise involved in granite mining, where granite mining companies have bought out residential properties. You have to remember, you can't, in those types of operations where operations are fixed, doesn't mean they can just move somewhere else. For the most part, not in every case, they want to be good neighbors too. And if it gets to that point, there are buyouts. In every case, no. The reality is that has worked. Is it ideal? No.
My only other comment would be that the number of people this facility would impact, I'm sure there are many, many of us that don't wish to be bought out, and we don't wish this imposed on us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time for government to think about doing something to prevent this, as opposed to having to run it through litigation, and so on and so on. It can be done. Get off our hands and do something about it.
To the extent it's a less than ideal situation, I agree.
Okay, we're going to stop it right there. You guys are welcome to stay, but we need to do our, it's an important topic, but we need to take care of our Lake Association business. You guys are hang out. We should get over with it pretty quickly here.
I've got 2 donuts left, so I'll be here a while.